All right, let's get into this issue because the energy insanity today got worse, much worse, after the Victorian government's unprecedented decision to ban the use of gas in all new homes from January next year. Now, if it's happening in Victoria, I promise you it's coming to a state near you, given Daniel Andrews provides the template for Labor across the country. Just this afternoon, New South Wales Premier Chris Minns, when questioned about this gas policy, wouldn't rule it out.
We don't have an announcement in relation to that today. I'd encourage you to speak to the Minister for Energy. We've got more announcements in relation to the next stage for the transition for energy in New South Wales in the coming weeks.
So read between the lines there, Sydney. This decision today, rushed down in a hurry, means no gas hot water systems allowed, no gas cooktops, no plumbed gas barbecues, no gas heating in any new home or apartment or government building in Victoria within a few months. Not because, I might add, home buyers have made the decision on the grounds of price or choice or quality when they build their own home, but because the climate-obsessed Andrews government has made the decision for them on the basis of emissions. Even though gas has half the emissions of coal-fired power, that still provides most of Victoria's electricity. So at least in the short term, despite what the government's saying today, fewer gas appliances and more electric appliances will actually send emissions up, not down. Meaning Labor's crusade against emissions is not only ideologically driven, but it's actually counterproductive. And yes, if Australia's electricity supply does become 80 or 90% renewable, as the government wants, emissions might ultimately decline. But so too reliability, given there is currently no technically feasible and economically viable means of providing firming of the intermittent power other than through the use of gas, so that what the Victorian government is doing is demonising the only product that can give us reliable electricity. Now, just imagine only being able to have a hot shower on a windy day, or only being able to cook during daylight hours when your solar power's on. That's how crazy this is getting. Now, in making this absurd announcement, the government claimed it would shave $1,000 off your power bill each year. Now, this is simply fanciful, even less believable than Albanese's promise, that fantasy in the election campaign, to cut your power bill by $275 per household per year. That was at least accompanied by some sort of modelling. Well, not so here. If an all-electric household really is going to cut your bills by $1,000 a year, why does the government need to make it mandatory? You and I know, as rational consumers, we'd do that anyway. But here's the facts. The consumer organisation Choice puts the annualised cost of instant gas hot water at around $400 a year, compared to at least $650 for instant electric hot water. Gas, let's not forget, I've said it there, but it is half the emissions of electricity. Choice says that gas-boosted solar hot water, likewise, is roughly half the annualised cost and half the emissions of electric-boosted solar hot water. So what the hell is the government talking about? Don't just listen to me, though. Have a look at this statement from John Seeley. He's the bloke, the managing director of Seeley International, which is Australia's largest air conditioning and gas heating appliance manufacturer, running brands you'll know at home, Breeze Air and Braemar. Now, Seeley says this. He says the Victorian government's foolish and short-sighted ban on gas will only push emissions higher and increase the risk of blackouts. He says, stop being dishonest with Victorians. Stop denying the simple science that right now, in Victorian homes, electricity from brown coal is 4 times more emissions intensive than natural gas. Now, he goes on with his very pointed message to the Andrews government. He says, stop using the cover of a righteous environmental pursuit and a climate emergency to spread mistruths and lies. Now, this is a serious Australian businessman saying, he's the managing director of Seeley International, as I said, our biggest manufacturer of air conditioning and gas appliances, giving the Victorian government a dose of reality. He also catches the Victorian Energy Minister, Lily D'Ambrosio, out on her claim that gas, she says, represents 17% of Victoria's emissions, because he says the minister has, though, ignored the fact that residential gas, which is the focus of this ban, represents less than 2% of emissions. Now, Sealy also makes a very valid point that there's no savings here for Victorians, given electricity is rising faster in the state, costs more than gas. And he finishes his excoriating statement this afternoon with this. He says, how galling for a morally bankrupt state government that has run Victoria's economy into the ground to now dictate how people live their lives, heat their homes and cook their meals. Now, words can hardly do justice to the control freakery, the ideological idiocy and the sheer dishonesty of the Daniel Andrews government. Today's gas ban announcement was made by a couple of ministers no one's ever heard of, because its real author, the Premier, wouldn't front the media today because he didn't want questions over his latest anti-corruption report, which, as the Australian newspaper revealed today, was doctored. So there was a change between the draft and the final report, and that change was to remove the Premier's name from certain places in the report. Now, it's hard to avoid the conclusion, is it, that the entire state of Victoria is suffering from some sort of Stockholm syndrome. We've all gotten used to being hostages in a party state under a boss who's got the whole place in his pocket. What else can explain the Liberal opposition failing to oppose immediately and absolutely this bizarre move today?